beach in Kawaihae. Off its shore was the most extensive reef of the Big Island. All of us born after 1959 never got to walk along that beach or gaze out over the reef because the harbor replaced it. What is also lost is more than 200 acres of coral reef. The general public can only see a harbor and is unaware there was once a reef. We may never know, but we can only imagine the loss and the sadness of those who lived there and saw the destruction of Kawaihae Reef with their own eyes. We also may never know what the reef's natural state was like. Fortunately, the public still has access to the void that is now the harbor basin and the surrounding reef. We can enjoy the artificial beach and peninsula, and from there, we can get glimpses of how things were underwater. All the public access to this artificial beach called LSD Beach will soon end due to a new pier Hawaii DOT Harbors wants to build over it. This means that the beach and the remaining reef beyond it will go extinct. This plan existed for decades. The coral reef is protected, so how is it still possible to plan to break the law? We cannot answer this question, but we'll elaborate on why it should not be later. What would you do if you realize a reef and a beach you and your family love would be destroyed? We hope you will learn what is at stake and do your best to stop it from happening. It may take a decade or more to educate and convince people who care and love that place to help save it. The reef cannot speak for the billions of lives living on it. We will do our best to tell its story. The geography of the Kohala Mountains possibly created the Kawaihae Reef. Several major drainage streams emptied into the Kawaihae Bay. The sediment and nutrients carried downstream made an ideal base for the coral reef to build up over time. From 1957 to 1959, the Kawaihae Reef was gutted to build the Kawaihae Harbor. This occurred before Hawaii's statehood, so people did not have a democratic process to make civil project decisions. The Environmental Protection Agency was not created for another decade. A project of this magnitude cannot be built now because there are laws in place to protect the coral reef ecosystems. An alternate northern location for the harbor could have spared the reef from near total destruction. The harbor could be located north of the reef where the traditional anchorage was. A 1932 nautical chart showed that area with a sandy bottom at an average depth of 38 feet. Instead, the United States Army Corps of Engineers made its biggest initial mistake by creating a 35-foot deep harbor in and on the reef. Over time, the Corps has also learned from its other mistakes. They designed the small boat harbor's opening to be south-facing instead of northwest. Heavy winter swells arrive from the northwest. The original harbor design may have intended to seal off the future Pelikani Bay, but instead, the little bay was left open in front of Pu'ukohola Heiau. Pelikani Bay now is muddy and has terrible water quality. It is rapidly filling up with sediment to become land. In 1791, King Kamehameha finished the Luakini Heiau, a sacrificial temple on a hill overlooking the reef. He had spent some time in Kawaihae and was compelled to locate such a significant heiau there. Several geographical factors may have influenced his choice. The two fundamental ones would certainly be running water and an abundant food source. Thousands lived and worked to construct the heiau then, so Kawaihae Reef would have to sustain them for at least a year. This area played an essential role in the history of Hawaii. In modern times, along came the harbor. The Kawaihae Reef, as a food source, was first to be destroyed. Then, the harbor almost entirely severed the heiau's connection to the reef. What is left is a tiny patch of muddy water. The U.S. government also claimed the shorelines as an eminent domain. That act forced local families off their homes and lands. The three most heinous acts unleashed by colonialism against indigenous cultures worldwide are destroying the food sources, being insensitive to cultural reverence, and forcing people off their lands. The construction of the Kawaihae Harbor achieved all three. The Corps' first mistake was selecting the reef to build its harbor. The initial error is then multiplied at least two more times. The 1972 Project Tugboat expansion was particularly nasty. The reef was blown up with high explosives as an experiment. Over time, more than 200 acres of coral reef were destroyed. 120 acres by excavation, and 93 acres were covered up because the Corps needed a place to store about 700,000 cubic yards of excavated material. They created an artificial peninsula that mainly sat unused. To understand the magnitude of how much the reef was destroyed, let us compare that to Waimea. The area would be almost half a mile wide and 1.3 miles long, the equivalent distance from Anna's Ranch to KTA Superstores. The Kawaihae Reef and the negative impacts of the harbor are inseparable. Now let us examine why it is essential not to harm the remaining reef. It is important to note that the harbor's unique environment attracts endangered and threatened species. All our observations mentioned here were made while snorkeling and free diving, not with scuba. We limited ourselves to the perimeter of the harbor basin. The middle of the harbor is not ideal for snorkeling or diving for obvious safety reasons. The critically endangered Hawksbill sea turtle range is shown in areas threatened by the Kawaihae Harbor Expansion Plan 2035. Hawksbills are observed mainly inside the harbor. The underwater infrastructure of the harbor is rich with a variety of sponges that are part of the hawksbill's diet. Endangered black-teat fish or teated sea cucumber range throughout the reef in sandy areas. They were observed in the threatened areas. Endangered green sea turtles range throughout the reef. They are more common than the hawksbill sea turtles. Vulnerable reef manta rays frequent this area during the winter months with swells. Recently, we observed two record-length nudibranchs and shared these discoveries with sea slugs of Hawaii. Until then, the standard length listed in guidebooks and general information about Tamsia morosa, or gloomy nudibranchs, listed them up to 102 millimeter. We recorded two gloomies over 120 millimeter in length. There was also a morning dotted nudibranch we saw that reached 70 millimeter. Here on the reef, we have documented several uncommon species listed below. Stiff martensia, plate and knob coral, and magnificent snake eel. These animals we documented were near the water's surface, so what we could and did observe was limited. The harbor's floor is rarely visible down deeper, so we often wonder about the potential for other rare and oversized species hidden below. Since the harbor was created on a reef, it has a unique relationship with its surroundings. Coral life in the inner harbor differs drastically from the reef outside its breakwall. This is puzzling and may have to do with two factors. The reef inside is protected by swells and somehow benefits from the upwelling of boat traffic. The harbor's current minimal marine vessel traffic and the balance of artificial upwelling of the cooler water and nutrients may be vital to maintaining coral reefs' health here and perhaps worldwide. A brief snorkel will surprise you with the coral's density and variety. Though dominantly consisting of stony corals such as fingers, mounds, lobes, plate and pillars, and cauliflowers, you will also see mushroom and soft cup corals. The dark blue precipice on the other side of the corals is where the coral cleaved the reef off twice. Yet, corals here are healthy and dense. Here, you can imagine the entire reef spreading over hundreds of acres in its natural state. As we pass over this area, you may notice an absence of larger fish. This is good, since it is a nursery for smaller reef fish. When smaller fish dart into hiding as you approach, it could also mean they are conditioned to avoid predators. With these subtle clues, you will discover that the reef is healthy and attractive to juveniles and predators alike. The bottom drops to 30 or 40 feet at this edge and is not visible. Sharks rotate in and out and are seen often. We want to show glimpses of what we mean by coral in an undisturbed natural state. This plate and pillar, or Porrid's Rus coral colony, was here long before 1959. Conservative estimate of its age is nearly 400 years old. It is 20 by 25 feet long and 18 by 20 feet wide and can be seen above on Google Maps. We are outside the breakwall, where sizable stony coral colonies are dispersed. There are clumps of mound corals that are outliers. The remaining mantle of the reef is perforated. Encrusting corals are filling in the surface areas of these voids. More corals can be seen 100 meters from the breakwall. Coral density does get better further out and in deeper water. This is the Kawaihae Breakwater, a surf spot made famous by Queen Emma, and winter swells can approach 6 meters or 20 feet high here. This breakwall, combined with surf, may have made coral recovery from 1957 very slowly. We have no record of how the reef was naturally outside the harbor. If you wonder what it was like, you have living examples on the other side of the wall. Though the reef is visually scarred and barren here, as we mentioned, this is where green sea turtles and manta rays are often observed. Hawaii's DOT Harbor's Master Plan 2035 for Kawaihae Harbor is publicly available. Specifically, Phase 4 shows the final improvements with the addition of Pier 3, which has remained unchanged for decades. How is this plan still ongoing when the construction of this pier will destroy protected coral reefs? We cannot answer this question given Executive Order 13089, Coral Protection. It calls for all federal agencies whose activities may affect coral reef ecosystems to identify such actions use their programs and authorities to protect and enhance coral reef ecosystems, and ensure that any action they authorize, fund, or carry out will not degrade the condition of coral reef ecosystems. We do not know why all federal agencies involved have not identified such action that may affect this coral reef. We learned that in the master plan, any mention of coral reefs is omitted. Hawaii DOT also consistently stated in writing that there is no reef to be concerned about. In our research, we are not confident that both federal agencies, EPA and the Corps, could save this reef. The environmental impact statement required for approval or rejection of this project occurs at the end when funding and design are already in place. It will be too late. The reviewers will be under political pressure to approve. The Corps' track record is terrible for Kawaihae Reef. Even with laws protecting coral reefs, we fear that the system will fail if Hawaii DOT is allowed to proceed with its current design. They must not prepare plans and raise funds to break the law. The current Phase 4 with Pier 3 must be eliminated, and in its place, another option away from that reef. Only until then we can be comfortable knowing that all parties are accountable to the law. We have our challenges ahead to save this reef. The Kawaihae Reef is alive. We know lives are at stake when the harbor implements its improvement plans shortly. The construction of Pier 3 intends to destroy a patch of reef that survived a few previous dredgings. Dredging and construction is a violently destructive process for marine life unless all the necessary care is followed. The EPA's most relevant executive order, 13089, is for federal and state agencies not to harm but to enhance the coral reef. The Kawaihae Reef suffers through the harbor construction in a similar way the indigenous people endure colonialism. The reef is much more than a food source, as we learn and now revered. The negative impacts of careless destruction still pervades. This reef was gutted several times, but is still resilient and has given us so much. Its gifts are not in the amount of sustenance, but in the slow unveiling of its secrets and teachings. It is a hopeful and beautiful place that not many people are willing to explore, perhaps due to the misunderstanding that the harbor is polluted like many other harbors. Inside the harbor, the corals are dense and healthy on that little strip along the breakwall, and smaller patches of reef remaining. An ideal balance is achieved between water quality, temperature, and nutrients for the corals. That environment is also home to larger than normal species that were and may yet to be discovered. Something is working well for the marine life inside the harbor. That is a cause for celebration and hope. In the past, ignorance about the importance of coral reefs may have led the Corps to make the mistake of carving up the reef for a harbor. Times are different now. Coral reefs in Florida and elsewhere are in trouble. Hawaii's reef were not spared when the ocean warmed in 2014 and 2015. The Kawaihae Reef visually appears to have recovered 30 to 40% since 2015. How could we allow our federal and state agencies to repeat their past mistakes? The answer is we cannot. Indeed, we can no longer enslave people or forcefully remove them from their ancestral lands. We definitely cannot allow any reef to be destroyed. Any future decision to destroy the reef must have the consent of the reef.
Mai ka puana